I want to welcome everybody to our Thanksgiving meeting. I hope you enjoyed the traditional Thanksgiving fare of lasagna. I'm really not kidding there. My paternal grandmother, who immigrated from the US as a young bride from Italy, put a lasagna on the Thanksgiving table every single year. It drove my mother crazy. She liked to cook. She liked to experiment with things. She made a goose once. Nobody liked that. A couple of standing prime ribs. We were good with that, but we really wanted turkey. But no matter what she made, we had lasagna. So I feel right at home with this. I hope you do too. Since we are very close to Thanksgiving, and this is our last meeting of 2023, I wanted to use my short remarks today to reflect a little bit. When I took over this post in February, in honesty, I had absolutely no idea what the heck I was doing. But I was really fortunate to have some excellent mentoring and support from previous presidents, Mary Wright, Linda Hardman, and Kate Franch. I will probably butcher this comment, but you'll get the drift. They say that God puts people in your life when you need them, and that is definitely the case with the DWGC board. I met Jen Boffey 2 days before we had the election. I knew Evelyn Nocella a little bit from her work with North Greenville Dems, but not closely. And I knew nothing at all about Valerie Brooks Madden until the day we were elected, and I met her for the first time. But the three of them have been absolutely indispensable to our board. We have some openings on the board that are proving challenging to fill. But I am very thankful for Linda Director, who's picked up and done a really great job with fundraising in addition to planning and managing our monthly meetings. And for longtime board members, Linda Hardman, our legislative chair and past president, second VP and membership chair, Peggy Schatz, and social chair, Sadie Carter, who are a crucial bridge for me between honoring the past while moving toward an evolving future. And for Lucille Herwald, who brings her artistic talent and skill to our communications, and Mary McCarthy, although not a board member, who has done an amazing job in just a few months of being editor of The Donkey's Tale. So we could not have had the year we've had without all those people leading this group. So I've been filling in as programs chair since May, but I am very grateful to Roxanne Cordner and Anita LeBold, also a past president, for being my partners in an ad hoc programs committee. Our goal this year was to have next level programs that would educate, engage, and include opportunities for advocacy and activism. So far, I feel that we've achieved that, thanks in no small part to their participation. With Evelyn's leadership of the squad, we set up volunteer signups for both Dorothy and Michelle's campaigns. I am really thankful for the 67 members and friends who volunteered for a minimum of 211 canvassing, phone banking, and event shifts. I say minimum of 211 because some people, like Lee Turner and Anita, went out every weekend and probably a bunch of weeknights as well. And some people didn't even sign up. They just showed up when they were needed. So for all of those, I'm really grateful. I always send my remarks out to the board before the meeting, even if it's only the night before, as it was yesterday. And Valerie at the fundraising thing last night, she comes over to me and she said, well, I read your remarks, so I guess you didn't have anything important to say. I'm like, I thought it was important, but you know. So I am also thankful to all of you who are members, meeting goers, and first timers for helping to make this group, which is the oldest operating Democratic women's organization in the state of South Carolina. Yeah. The vibrant community that it is. As of today, we have 258 members. I know, it's great. Which is about a 30% increase over last year. And I think we're making progress in bringing younger women into the organization through outreach activities that Jen has organized, the cocktails and conversation, the book club, community engagement things that we've done this year, and the monthly coffee. And I'm thankful for the efforts of Paula Catterall and Charlotte Abrams in keeping these events going without interruption for 7 years. They have been casual and welcoming and regularly attracting new and sometimes younger folk. I love saying that, being almost 70 myself, the younger women. And this last coffee this weekend was no different. We had 4 or 5 new people. And some of them, like Liz Jordan, become members. I mean, it's really great. At the coffee this Saturday, I was interviewed by the national political reporter for Politico, David Siders. I know, I thought, I'll happily sign autographs after the meeting. Interview doesn't, of course, mean actually quoted, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. But he had reached out to me to see if he could come to the coffee after he read a blog post that I wrote on why we are not stuck with Biden. He talked to several other coffee goers in the group and took a bunch of pictures, so we'll see if anything comes of that. Thank you. One area where I fear we may be losing ground is in diversity, especially among African Americans, but also Hispanic and Asian women. This is something the board is concerned about and has been discussing. I'm interested in organizing a small group of members to help me understand what we may be doing wrong or what we could be doing differently, so that we can evolve and attract even more members and have a more diverse, which will make us a stronger, healthier, more productive group. If you have any thoughts, any of you have any thoughts on this subject, please reach out to me. My phone number and email address are all over the place. But if you come up and ask me, I got a card in my back pocket, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I think it's really important. Okay, so at this moment, I'd like to welcome any new members in the room. So if this is your first meeting since you joined, if you could stand up so we can see you and welcome you. Gail, come on. We also have a lot of new faces at every meeting, which I think is really exciting. Not all of them become members, but they're all a part of our community. So if you are new to the meetings, member or not, if you could stand up so we can see you. Welcome. Bringing in new members is something we can all be a part of. On your tables, there are stacks of cards. There are information cards about Democratic women. Take as many as you'd like to have and keep them in your purse and hand them out when you meet people who might be good candidates interested in the organization. I have lots of them. We can get lots more. So please take as many as you think you'd like. That'd be great. And finally, I bet you thought I was never going to get here. I am thankful for Dorothy Dow and Michelle Shane. Michelle can't be with us today due to a family commitment, but I am thankful for both of them as candidates for their grace, resilience, power, and presence that they showed in their races. They elevated the community conversation, and I, for one, am very proud to have been a small part of their campaigns. To Dorothy, who calls me a badass, I say, you, lady, are the badass. This was not an easy election. There were obstacles to overcome and mountains to climb. And climb them she did with resolve, fortitude, positivism, and commitment to this community. And she did it in those damn heels. I don't know if they're 5 or 6 inches, but they are way worse than that. Holding the Democratic majority in the city council was crucial, and I am looking forward to seeing what she can accomplish over the next 4 years. I'm already standing up, but I ask that you all join me in giving Dorothy a huge round of applause. Okay, just a couple of quick announcements before we get to the program. Fellow member Doris McClellan, who I do see today, has picked up the organizing gauntlet and is starting up a democratically affiliated group called East Side Dems. Yay, Doris. Obviously, she's got flyers. This is kind of a cross between North Greenville Dems and the Democratic Women's Coffees. The group will meet at the Cartwright Food Hall in downtown Greer on the 3rd Saturday of every month at 9 a.m. And the inaugural meeting is this Saturday. Everybody is welcome. Be great to have you. We had a great time yesterday at the exclusive fall shopping spree at the West Side Market. Nearly 70 people signed up. We had about 50 of those attend. We grossed nearly $1,900 on ticket sales and the 10% we get from the shopping. So thank you to everybody who participated. Our next meeting will be in January. So this is our last meeting of the year. The annual meeting is provided for in our bylaws as a chance for the board to give reports. I don't know that that has ever happened, but it will happen this year. So our meeting will basically be board members giving reports and a financial report from Valerie, and you will be the speakers. A year ago at our first meeting, we did a walk around open discussion about what you wanted to see in Dem Women. And I think we took most, if not all of those ideas and did something with them. So in this meeting, we'll do that again and see where we stand, what you think the things to do for the next year are, what you like, what you don't like, and where you think we should be focusing our efforts. So that will be our January meeting. I mentioned before how Linda Director has stepped up, filling 2 crucial roles on the board. She's planned a hell of a party for our annual holiday party, and I'm going to let her come up and tell you about it.
Okay, first of all, we have to talk about what's important, and I got a lot of compliments on my shawl here. And I want everybody to know that our very own Helen Fisher is the lady who makes these things. And if you don't know, she's really talented and does a great job. So much for promotion. So anyway, about the holiday party, as Laura so aptly said, we've had a great year with good support from all of you, and we really appreciate it. I would like to give back by making a really great Christmas party. And it's going to be held at Ink and Ivy on December 3rd from 3 to 6. We will have music, we will have an open bar, we will have food, and it looks like the plan is to have it be a fabulous party. So get dressed, look pretty, bring your husbands, they're welcome, and come have a good time with us, and let's celebrate each other and what we've accomplished and, friendship. So that's about it. So December 3rd, what did I say? 3 to 6? What? 3 to 6. And it's at Ink and Ivy now. The parking, we're going to let you know about parking. It's not really difficult. There's a lot of parking in that neighborhood, but we'll send you some information just in case, because I know many of you aren't familiar with that. Downtown is kind of crowded. So that's it. And so we look forward to seeing you then.
Just one question. It's not open, bar.
Well, it will be. Okay, everybody gets one drink. To be perfectly clear, we're providing one cocktail of your choice. And after that, there will be an open cash bar. We want to be, okay? Fair. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda. So one last announcement I want to make. Our member and distinguished civil servant, Viola Robinson, is going to be honored as one of the representatives on the South Carolina African American History Calendar for 2024. Legends in our midst. Congratulations, Leola. That's great. Great recognition. Okay, so how was your drive over here? Well, maybe a little rough, bouncing over some decrepit roads, bridges, patchwork roads. Of course, infrastructure is a lot broader than roads and bridges. And we're going to find out more today about what's in it for us in President Biden's bipartisan infrastructure law. To date, $3.2 billion in federal funding has been allocated to South Carolina for more than 170 specific projects. We'll get some answers on those today, and I want to thank Ruth Burley for proposing this topic. If you guys have any ideas for programs, please let me know. Each speaker is going to get 10 minutes to speak. We have 3 speakers today. Please hold any questions to the end, and we'll get all the speakers together and we'll have a overall Q&A. Our first speaker is Chip Bentley. Chip is the Deputy Director of the Appalachian Council of Governments. I admit, like many of you, I had not heard of this organization until I started planning this program. The organization supports local governments in Anderson, Cherokee, Greenville, Oconee, Pickens, and Spartanburg counties, and provides planning assistance, grants, and services to these communities. And I'm quoting their website here: to build a competitive economy and promote healthy, livable communities that preserve our residents' quality of life. Chip has been with ACOG since 1996, following his completion of a master's degree in urban and regional planning from Florida State. He became, I guess you have another alum there. He became deputy director in 2016, and his portfolio includes assisting communities with strategic planning, land use development, and infrastructure. Chip, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Happy Monday, everybody. Sorry if my voice is a little gravelly. I might have been in Tallahassee on Saturday to see them play Miami, and I might have yelled a little too much and been concerned what it was going to sound like today. But we'll carry on. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to everybody. And, you know, infrastructure is, it's a good topic, and I'm not going to say that anybody knows all of everything that's going on. If you look at the last 4 or 5 years, the state, local governments are awash in money, whether it's ARPA funds that went directly to cities in the state or other funds that became available for different projects, or now the infrastructure bill. It all kind of melds together and everything. So I'm going to focus on the infrastructure bill, but you know, it's not to be confused with the $1.4 billion that the state allocated to infrastructure improvements at the beginning of this year across the region, of which this region got the bulk of the states, not quite half, but about 400 million of that $1.4 billion came to the upstate. There's a lot of different pots of money. So if y'all have questions at the end about some of that and you say, hey, you didn't talk about this, well, there's probably a reason, because we can't talk about it all in 10 minutes. The infrastructure bill, as Laura said, there was $6 billion allocated to South Carolina over 5 years in that authorization. That's a lot of money. 4.9 of that $6 billion went to transportation. We'll go to transportation at some point. So the bulk of it is on roads and bridges and transit and things, different aspects of that. So usually DOT, a few EPA programs, things like that. So the majority of it, but that still leaves over $1 billion for a lot of other programs. We'll go through some of that. The handout that went around really covers on a national scale all the different pots of money that are out there in that infrastructure bill. I'm not going to talk about every one of those. Not everyone's relevant to this area, but just to give you an idea of all the ones that are out there. As Laura said, since the bill passed, we've had over $3 billion that's been allocated to transportation in South Carolina, another $200 million for clean water projects, and another $550 million that's been allocated to broadband. And those are kind of the major pots. There's also some other smaller ones I'm going to talk about here, but that's just the beginning of that money that came through. There's other grants that are going to become available, other funds that will come to the region. You know, we're not quite a third of the way through, 2/3 of the way through. So there's lots of work to be done. That transportation money, that bumpy ride you had over here, about 5 years ago, DOT set a new strategic plan that said their goal was to get to good, right? So they're really exciting, cutting edge. They said, we just want to pave our roads and get them so that we don't have potholes anymore. And they started investing more and more money. This money that's going into this, the bulk of it is going to expedite that, whether it's expanding interstates or repaving roads or some new roads, but primarily repaving, fixing roads that we had let it go so long, over 30 years before, without raising the gas tax, that they can't just repave a lot of the roads that have problems. They have to take them down to the base again and rebuild them back up because there's so much damage to them. They had done so little. So a lot of this money is going to a good cause. It's also going to be the same things you've been seeing. It just expedites that and lets you get to more projects in a shorter time frame. So I think about 3 of the $3.3 billion that's come to South Carolina in roads in transportation has been in roads and bridges so far. So also a big focus on bridges at DOT with a lot of this money, which is really important. We have a lot of deficient bridges statewide, so that's a big problem. Not just on freight corridors and everything, but in rural areas where you need fire stations that literally have to go, 20 minutes out of their way to respond to a fire because they can't take their truck across a bridge in certain places. Things like that. And that's here in the upstate. So different things. Another main emphasis is broadband internet, getting that all across the state, especially in the rural areas. So the state has what is called the BEAD program. It's Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program. The state has gotten about $550 million so far for that program. They're getting a little more in the end, but they are just now sort of going through the planning phases. They start beginning this year trying to identify those areas in the state where access is lacking, especially in the rural areas, and trying to map that out. They have done some surveys. They've gone to the counties. They've asked us to help kind of get that out there to identify those areas so they know where they want to target, and they're partnering with broadband providers. And some of those are unique. So if you take like Blue Ridge Electric in the upstate, which is a lot of Pickens and Oconee, they have their own broadband company as well. And they are working in the rural areas where they're extending natural gas and things and that are very rural that don't have that. They're working with them to try and partner to extend those into those areas. So that's really focused a lot on the rural areas, as well as some pockets in more urban communities that lack access right now. There's also an aspect of that focuses on getting people affordable broadband. So there are qualifications you get if you go to getinternet.gov that you can access and say, hey, can I get affordable or reduced internet? And there's about 400,000 people in the state of South Carolina that are getting that right now through that program. And that's money that came through the Infrastructure Act, but they're trying to get that extended so it continues on. So broadband's been a big emphasis of a lot of this. There's also water. About $200 million came to the state overall. There's a lot of that hasn't been used yet, but that's really focused on clean water when it comes to lead pipe issues, system issues in places that have deficient systems. I don't know if anybody knows, but Belton within the last year or so has had an issue with lead in their water system and needing to do repairs for that. These funds can go to those kind of projects and help that, especially a lot of the smaller mill village type communities, things like that haven't done infrastructure improvements in a long time. They find they have those problems in hotspots. And so this money can go to address that. There's also a fair amount for transit, buses, things like that. The transit program itself is specifically to help transit programs expand improve operations, build facilities, things like that. Greenleaf has taken advantage of that. And I'm going to guess our other speakers today are going to talk about that. So I'm not going to talk about those specifics. So it's not still my job here is just to provide context, right? I'm just a general guy. We are the nerds in the back of the room that hide in the shadows. And that's why nobody knows who we are. And I'm kind of comfortable with that, honestly. So, when I get up here, I'm like, oh dear. So in South Carolina, there's been about $142 million that have gone to transit projects so far in South Carolina. That's all throughout the state and places. And so there's a fair, that's not even halfway to the full allocation over 5 years and everything. And that'll do a lot to help some of our systems improve their current facilities and their systems and expand them and things like that. The Clean Buses program is another specific one. There's over the 5 years, the first 5 years, there's about $5 billion assigned to that. And within South Carolina, that is going to help both transit systems try and get more efficient buses as well as school districts. And so there's an EPA program and a DOT program that kind of split those funds. So there's been about $58 million given out by EPA for their Clean School Bus program and about another $37 million given out by DOT for their low and no emission bus facilities programs. So I will talk. So we do work in the 6 counties and upstate. So I will say, like Anderson District 5 has gotten money to replace. I can't remember. I have it somewhere in here in the notes, but to replace some of their buses with low and no emission buses. And so it's something a lot of different groups can use. Greenville is using it, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But so that's been a boon for a lot of people, and it does help. One of the priorities with the Infrastructure Act was not only to improve infrastructure, but also to help with the climate, other issues like that. So getting old diesel buses off the road and replacing them with new ones really does help with emissions, air quality, a myriad of health problems, as well as climate change. So that's all part of that. There's also a big pot of money that's gone to electrical vehicle charging. The state has a program where they're looking at that statewide, doing a plan for how they can identify where the needs are. Doing some studies, especially on the interstates. How do we set that up? Where do we find places? Many communities are looking at that now. It's very popular. Obviously, with BMW locating their battery plant here and focusing on electric vehicle production here over time, it's going to be a bigger thing in the upstate. So that's a big positive. They've allocated about $40 million to help build out the EP network in South Carolina so far. So as we move forward, that'll be a part of it. There's also about $150 million annually, there's been about $71 million allocated in South Carolina so far for clean energy and power. That's all about upgrading power stations, improving the grid, modernizing it, also weatherization. And actually a bulk of what South Carolina's got is for weatherization. So if you look at it, there's about $7 million has gone to the state energy program for different efforts. $6 million has been energy efficiency conservation block grant program, which you can apply to the state for. $15 million has gone into improving the grid to prevent outages and improve resiliency for different times, whether it's ice storms or hurricanes or whatever the case may be. And then $42 million has gone to a weatherization program, because a large part, we lose a lot of energy just trying to heat homes that literally don't have any kind of insulation, things like that, the older homes, everything. So that money is going to that program to help with that. Call my time when you need to, Laura. I failed to start the clock. So there's about $25 billion nationally going to airports. There's about $74 billion is reported for South Carolina. Those have gone to all three Greenville airports, downtown, Donaldson, and GSP, as well as Spartanburg's airport. There's some funds have gone to each of them, and so I won't get into details of those projects, but there's a lot of money going into airports to try and help improve those infrastructure. And that helps with all kinds of things from economic development to just plain travel for people, intermodal, multimodal types, things like that. Ports and waterways, I won't talk too much about that, but South Carolina received a fair amount. We have not received a lot, although Greer, the inland port, could get some, but to date they haven't. Most of that's been focused on Charleston, about $21 million for the state so far. And then there's about $103 million worth of different funds available allocated to resiliency projects. And that's, projects in different communities where they're trying to shore up their infrastructure, deal with floodplain management, things like that. So I moved here in '96, and if anybody remembers that time, there had been a lot of tropical storms in quick succession that led to a lot of flooding in the city. And there has been various efforts over time to kind of buy out properties that were in the floodplain and constantly getting flooded, whether it's in the city of Greenville or Southern Greenville County and things like that. And those are the kind of things that can go to also shoring up in the low country, things that, things that are infrastructure is continually getting degraded by storms and things like that. They look for ways to improve that. So you don't have to replace it every time there's a hurricane or a big blow or whatever the case may be. So a lot of money went into resilience as well from this. And then there's legacy pollution cleanup. So there's money for brownfields out there. Essentially, they put more money into those existing programs. So those are kind of the big areas. And you'll see there's 2 pages worth of specific pots on that page that go to a lot of different things. But those are kind of the big general areas that we're focused on with funds coming to South Carolina and trying to use those. And that gets integrated, like in the transportation. They didn't take it and create new programs. They said, hey, we can speed up the things we've already planned for those areas where we are already set and had a path forward and said, hey, this is what we need to do to make things better. It helped expedite those things. In some cases, like with broadband, it's like, hey, we need to do some planning. Let's figure out a way to do this efficiently. And they're taking some more time to implement that because they're trying to work through that process instead of just throwing money at the wall. If anybody remembers 2008, when all the money came, then it was like project, shovel ready projects. You had to spend it all in 18 months. A lot of money got spent on projects that were about ready to go because that's the only way you were going to get something permitted in 18 months, right? So it wasn't innovative. It didn't allow you to really look down the road and say, hey, how can we make sure that this is something that's going to be great for the next 20 years? It was like, hey, what are we ready to spend money on? Let's get it out quickly. This has given us a little more time to sit there and be thoughtful about it and say, hey, how do we modernize things? How do we make this move forward in a way that helps us for the next 30 years, not just the next 3 weeks. So, as I said, there's several projects in Greenville that they'll talk about, but then there's other projects. So like Clemson has gotten $4.4 million for their Clemson University Transportation Center. That's leading an effort with different universities to focus on cybersecurity and transportation, where they're looking at intelligent transportation systems moving down the road, where you have signalization and everything's all connected. Those kind of things, they can get hacked. So that center will be focused on that. So when we talk about this money goes to a lot of different things, it goes to a lot of different things. That's really getting down in the weeds and the minutiae of that, but they're getting money for that. Clemson Area Transit's gotten buses and help with their center. You have brownfields assessments, hydroelectric projects, and different, like in Packlet, they're getting funds to help shore up their dam. Solar projects in different communities, just a myriad of different projects and all these are all, less than $1 million. So when you're talking about $6 billion worth of funds, that's a really small, there's a lot of little projects out there, but that is the general gist of what the infrastructure grant was trying to get to. And I will now let the others speak about the exciting part of the program, which is not mine.
Yeah, that was great. It's a lot of money. Okay, our next speaker is well known by most everybody in the room, Councilman Ennis Fant, has served on City Council since 2017. County, I'm sorry. County Council. Sorry. I got City Council stuck in my head, Dorothy. I don't know why that is. He is currently chairman of both the Planning and Development Committee and the Affordable Housing Committee. He's a member of the Finance Committee as well, and relevant to today's topic, the Road Infrastructure and Public Works Committee. Additionally, he serves on the board of directors of the Appalachian Council of Governments. There that is again. He graduated from USC with a BS in chemical engineering, and this fascinates me. Is the holder of 2 patents. I'm really interested in learning what those are all about. I was going to say something and look them up, but I figure I could not possibly explain what they meant, so I was just going to leave it at that. And he's the pastor of the Pleasant View Missionary Baptist Church, a position he's held since 1990. So, Councilman, thank you for joining us today to talk about the county.
Good afternoon. I am kind of honored that enough of you guys have my phone number, and I got 4 text messages from this room within a matter of 30 seconds to remind me of where I was supposed to be while I was on my way. So I am so glad I feel, so everybody feel that close to me to make sure I'm where I'm supposed to be. It's kind of funny. I was on the phone with Sheriff Lewis. Before, we were talking about another project, and before I told him, I said, I got to go, man. I got to get over to Democratic women for their lunch. He was like, oh, well, you should be safe. I guess I don't need to send a deputy with you. So it is a real challenge being on county council. It is not as easy as you think, and they are not the friendliest and nicest people in the world. And if you think they're mean in public, you just meet with them in the back before we go. It's serious. I have ladies, Deborah and Lacey and Miss Annie there at every meeting. They sit on, some of you come, they sit on the left-hand side. And so when they're there, I am allowed to walk out the front door and walk to the car with them. If nobody from 25 is there that looks like me, I have to go out the back door, and the deputy has to walk me to my car to make sure I leave safely. So Jubilacus or Shaw don't accost me. Now people think that's funny, but that's actually true. So when we talk about they're mean, they are. It is not play. Y'all did not know that. I mean, y'all look like y'all just like in this shock look. We'll talk about more how to get rid of those two next year. It is a unique time on county council. Few years back, probably you had 8 mean people and probably 4 nice ones. Today, you have 9 nice, reasonable people, and you only got 3 mean ones. 3, and we can work around them. Typically, 10 years ago, you would never have heard of a Democrat being chairman of planning and development. Never, ever, ever. It just would have never come up for discussion. But me being third in seniority, they did not play the political polarization and hyperpartisanship game that so many like to play, and allowed me to not only chair the Planning and Development Committee, which is overall zoning and land management in Greenville County, but also allowed me to pick my own committee members. So all of them not bad. We got 3, but the other, 6, 7 of them, they're pretty cool. So we want to talk a little bit about infrastructure and how the infrastructure bill and how it works, applies to Greenville County. I should have known when I started doing the research, the money didn't come to us directly, but went to Columbia. Because every time a check comes to Greenville, we have to pick winners and losers. And everybody lines up with their organization talking about how much they deserve and how much they need and how they're the best organization in Greenville County, way better than everybody else. So here's the big thing. Not a lot to talk about from the county, but I'll tell you what we do know. Of course, as you know, has already been mentioned, $3.2 billion have come to the state so far. And of course, it's amazing how not just South Carolina, but all these old southern red states, they don't like to take money from the government. When it's a Democratic administration, they don't want it. They don't want it. And reject it. But they didn't reject this $6 billion. So it was like, well, since you don't like anything from the Biden administration, how do you justify taking this $6 billion? Well, it was a bipartisan bill. It passed with Republican vote. I bet it was no Republicans from South Carolina that voted for it. But they like to call it the bipartisan infrastructure bill, is why they agreed to take the $6 billion. Okay. Well, of course, the money when it came to South Carolina was given to DOT. Okay. And they were given the funds, and then they're pouring the majority of it, obviously, into roads and efficient bridges, safety projects, and interstate work. The state is putting out some grant programs through different agencies, but so far, all the projects awarded to Greenville County are either SCDOT projects or the following, which Chip mentioned a little bit of: Donaldson Airport, Greenlink, to help them acquire more electric buses and charging stations, Greenville Downtown Airport, and GSP. As you know, Lockheed has been a huge economic boom for Greenville County and the upstate, and they still can't find enough workers. And we had a little problem last year, everywhere across the country, Lockheed owns their own facilities, other than here, and they rent from SC Tech, those old hangars from World War II, and they leak, and we have to patch them up. So when you just build a $20 million jet and you roll it out for the first time, you can't have pebbles and rocks from the tarmac jumping up in the engine. I mean, it's just kind of failed. Show you how South Carolina works though. They knew they had this money. We needed $50 million. Well, we just can't give you the whole thing. Y'all got to contribute. So then they called me. I'm like, well, what do y'all want? Well, we need some help because Columbia won't give us the whole thing. Even though they have it, they want some contributions from the city and the county. I think y'all gave $1 million. And they were like, can you get $5 million from the county? I'm like, man, there's nobody in this room but me. Like I could do that, And I said, I'll tell you what I can do. I'll tell you what I can do. But I can probably get you to $5 million, but it won't be in one fell swoop. Can you live with it $1 million a year over 5 years? And they were like, if that's the only way we can get it, we can't do all the work in 1 year anyway. So part of that money that came from the infrastructure bill, the county put $5 million in, $1 million a year over the next 5 years. And I said, you better not try to put it all in at one time, the way these crazy people carry on about these budgets around here. And you have to have escorts to your car. So they were so busy worried about that $7 million tax increase. We slid that little $1 million a year, and it just went right under the radar. It's safe here, no media. It went right under the radar, and nobody saw. There's some other SCDOT projects that are listed specifically for Greenville County. Mount Lebanon Church Road, safety work done there. The I-85 bridge over Rocky Creek. The I-385 widening, of course, you hate going to Columbia now because that's that infrastructure money. I-385 widening from 85 to 276. US 25 from I-85 to Lily Street, safety improvements. US 276 Gear Highway, safety work there. Additional work being done on Batesville Road. You do know you can lose your life going to Asheville or coming back down 25. So there's some significant road improvements on US 25 coming south from Asheville. Of course, you know about the Woodruff Road parallel, which is going to give some relief there. Shannon Drive, they're replacing the bridge there. Significant road work being done on Roper Mountain Road. And of course, we're going to be widening Woodruff Road from Scuffletown Road down to Bennett's Bridge, which will help as well. So those are some things there that are being done on the county level. I thought it was funny when you ask staff for all this information. They don't speak in English, right? They speak with alliteration and acronyms, and I'm like, and I'm too embarrassed to say, look, I don't know what you're talking about. So I have to go home, wait till it gets dark and look it up. Sorry. Good story. And I knew I was coming over here, right? And I'm reading all this stuff they sent me. Raised Grand Apple, raised, I mean, EECG. But I was not going to call them. Listen, y'all got to, like bring this down for me. I have no clue what y'all talking about. But anyway, watch this. The county is working on a raised grant application, which means you look at that sheet they gave you, the Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity. How about that? With other parties, Greenville loves the Swamp Rabbit Trail. Now, anytime they can put some money into that Swamp Rabbit Trail, there's no need of arguing. There's no need of throwing a fit, folding your arms, walking out. It doesn't matter. Just some fights you're not going to win, so just give up the Swamp Rabbit Trail, anything they want. Yes, sir, right? Yeah, absolutely. So So working on the Swamp Rabbit Trail Bridge over SC 253, which is the only trail project. In fact, watch this. It's actually on the Finance Committee agenda today at 4:00 to approve the funding, the grant application for the bridge over 253. Here's the other thing they applied for. Said, well, don't forget, we applied for an EECBG grant. Too prideful to call them and ask him, I have no clue what you're talking about. So I look it up. Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant, okay? It is designed to improve our carbon footprint, okay? By increasing our recycling capabilities and reducing the frequency of hauling recycling boxes. We continue to look for opportunities for this funding. In fact, if we receive the grant, which I understand we will, 2 of the recycling centers will go in District 25 because we just lost Greater Greenville Sanitation. They just ended their little recycling program because of the expenses. So we're going to put 2 recycling stations in 25. You know, if you're going to be called a name, you like to know what the name means when you called one. Well, you do know Mark Lynch, who's extreme right-wing MAGA, oh my God, Patriot Alliance. They send out nasty emails all the time. And he has to call my name all the time. And then you also have, the way I remember him is by, I would say, the man with the Confederate name, Jeff Davis, who's head of the Greenville County GOP, the right-wing version, okay? And in all their emails, they call me names. They call me, let me get it right, extreme, radical, left-wing Democrat. And I'm like, what does that mean? And nobody can ever tell me what it means to be an extreme, radical, left-wing Democrat. But I found out last week, finally, what it means. When I stopped the sprawl of them old polluting septic tanks in southern Greenville County and said we were not going to poison these waterways not another time, and we're going to keep a healthy environment for the next generation of children. Now that's what they mean, because I protect the environment and will stand up to grief. And I'm getting ready to sit down, but I cannot fight the establishment and y'all too. I have the chamber mad at me. I have the Home Builders Association mad at me and all their millions. And I have the 4,000 members of the Greenville Association of Realtors mad at me, because we will not continue to inefficiently use land left in the southern part of Greenville County with septic tanks, 200 and 300 houses at a time. That is not an efficient use of land, and it's not environmentally friendly, and it's no. So that's what I do. Extreme, radical, left-wing Democrat.
I don't think you're alone, Councilman. I think there is a room full of extreme, radical, left-wing Democrats. I also used to have an editor years ago who told me she always got letters from the Republicans saying that we were too far left, letters from the Democrats saying we were too far right. And as long as that kept happening, she figured we were doing our job perfectly. Okay, so now we come to the city. I'm not going to belabor anything by an introduction for Dorothy. We all know who she is. Today, she's going to represent the city and tell us how its infrastructure funding is to be used. And
I'll give an intro while you do technical.
you go.
So I'm a little nervous about following council members. He is a joy to serve on different branches with, and his sense of humor is infectious. So thank you, Councilmember Pant. And he said so many things that tell me when you have it up, and then I can go. So many things that I can relate to in that we just want to get that money to serve our constituents, right? We know about the, I'll call it the bipartisan infrastructure law, the big pot of federal money. How do we get that money to our constituents? But there are a lot of those acronyms, the RAISE grants, the SMART grants. So I was sitting in my car in the parking lot, Googling what RAISE stood for. Just as I know, raising something. Then preceded by the Tiger Bill, like the other one have a name, something like that. But had I had this sheet that y'all have from Chip, it would have saved me about 2 hours over the weekend. Because I was like, I just want to know the funnel of money. I know what we've gotten, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. But getting it matched to which acronym was the biggest challenge. And a council member, I have the same staff that they're like, well, it's the RAISE bill. Well, that's the SMART grant. Well, you're like, just tell me the project, not the acronym. Just tell me the project. But like county, we do have a staff at the city that is responsible for watching that flow of money. There's something they send out that's an acronym, and it basically says, there's this money here if you want to go after it. FMOO, notice of funding, a NOFO, notice of funding opportunity. That's a nice way of saying, there's money here in DC, come and get it. And we have people that, how do I get to my thing? The PowerPoint's great. Oh, sorry. Hey, everybody who's out there virtually. Anywho, we have staff that is aware of this. They are notified of this from the government. And the challenge is, what projects do we have? Yeah, that's it.
Okay,
only back to, okay. So, okay, that's good. The challenge is, what projects do we have? We don't just think of projects and say, oh, let's do that and apply for the money. We have these projects in the pipeline on the horizon, and it's, oh, can we match the objectives of this project to what the federal government is looking to fund? And then there is strategy too. This has been part of my learning process over the last few years. How do you strategically apply for things and not shoot yourself in the foot by maybe applying for too many things at one time, or not providing the right data with one and then the other? And so most of what I'm going to talk about today ties to our Greenlink bus system, which I'm serve as the liaison to, and I just am a big fan of our Greenlink bus system. There is, so GTA is a Greenville Transit Authority. I do not control their budget. They are not owned by the city, contrary to what you might have heard lately. They are their own entity. I'm just the liaison from city council. And what that means is I'm at their meetings and I share empathy with them and I help them however I can. Sometimes that role is served by, if we have a grant application in the pipeline, and we have, and by the way, there are lobbyists that are keeping a pulse on where we stand. It might come to me making a phone call to someone to say, Representative Timmons, I really need your help on this. Can you please make a phone call? But I think it's called the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. And it's important to function in a bipartisan way across all spectrums in this, to try and get attention on the money you're trying to bring to your constituents. So the first one I talk about is a RAISE grant. RAISE stands for whatever that sheet says. But again, the RAISE money comes from the Department of Transportation and had this influx of funding from the federal government. This is going to be an example of where strategy was not followed and we failed miserably. We had 2 grants in for the RAISE program. One was for bus stop infrastructure, improving our bus stops. We have almost 500 bus stops in the Greenlink system. We had about, what does that say? North of 300 bus stops that vastly need improvement. So we put in a RAISE grant for upfitting our bus stops, $6 million in round numbers. We also had a RAISE grant in for some $22 million that was tied to the new maintenance and operations facility for Greenlink. The new maintenance and operation facility, some of y'all have heard me talk about. It's going to be off Rutherford Road. It is the game changer for Greenlink to expand their service, and it'll be opening up next year. And all was going well until we had a little thing called COVID. And then we had a little thing called supply chain issues. And then we had a little thing called the Ukrainian war and workforce shortage. And raise your hand if prices went down on anything you did following all those events. They just didn't. And so all of a sudden that project was underfunded. And so think about the federal government, who I picture these guys, sitting around a table saying, what do I got from South Carolina? We got one for 6 million. We got one for 22 million. Give them the 6 million. They'll be happy with that. And we were like, oh, why did we, that was a lesson learned. And I know you're thinking, well, y'all should have known that lesson already. But again, this is an unprecedented amount of money that's being fueled into the system. But the lesson learned was be strategic on what you're asking for. And there are multiple opportunities to ask for these funds. So we're very thankful for the 6 million that left our bus maintenance and operations facility still underfunded. So what did we do? We cut scope on that facility, which means we pared down what it will do. And we cut out what's called the compressed natural gas. Compressed natural gas, the acronym for that is CNG. It's a clean fuel. The original scope of the project had full compressed natural gas capability. And so we cut that out of the project scope. Said onward without the 22 million that we had applied for. We're still going to open it up, but we won't open it up with the ability to have compressed natural gas buses. That'll have to be a future phase. So then time went on. Now we're in 2023. And we found a way to do compressed natural gas much more fluidly, no pun intended on that, and went for another grant. This is the we call it low-no grant program. And Greenville Greenlink has been very successful getting low-no grants since I've been on council, and it has nothing to do with me being on council. It's just I've got to enjoy the good news. In 2021 or so, they awarded us a grant for 6 new electric buses from Proterra. In 2023, they awarded a $6.3 million grant, which allowed us to bring the infrastructure for compressed natural gas back into the Greenlink scope of the operations facility. So why is this important? It really speaks towards the sustainability that Councilmember Fant said. We are trying to go to a clean energy on Greenlink. We will never purchase another diesel bus again. We do have a portion of our fleet is electric buses, but we also want a different clean energy bus. And here's why. We choose to send buses to the coast when they're under threat of weather events. When you have to evacuate millions and millions of people, the fleet available at Charleston will not cut it. And so we send part of our fleet there to help. Well, an electric bus cannot get to Charleston. It has to recharge, so they are not functional for resourcing to other places. However, a CNG bus is. So it's the little things like that, not to mention being clean energy, that are really important, that we build a robustness in our fleet. And now we are going to be doing it because we got that money and it's going to be in the scope. So and we also got to purchase 2 additional compressed natural gas buses. So I'm super excited about that. Okay, how do I change it on this one? Oh, just advance it. Yeah, oh, there we go. Okay, good. Okay, top left corner, the Queen Street Bridge. How many of y'all know where the Queen Street Bridge is? Raise your hand. How many of y'all choose to drive over the Queen Street Bridge? Good, nobody. Don't ever drive over that bridge. This is a really troubling situation. It's connectivity to the west end. And this is a classic example of, if that bridge is taken out, we will be separating a community. It's happened over and over and over in Greenville, and it could happen again. We applied for funding on this through the SMART grant program. We were denied. It was a very low selection rate. This bridge is in terrible, terrible, terrible condition. You can look at it and see it is in terrible condition. The frustration to me is it's owned by the railroad. Their bridge, they should fix it. But Railroads don't care about moving people or cars. They care about moving railways. So suffice to say is we're working on it. We're working on it. The city has chipped in money that partnered with the state to fund design. So we're hopeful that if we can come forward and say we have it designed, this is really what it will cost, then we can start moving through the pipeline. But in the meantime, please don't drive across that bridge. Top middle is the pedestrian safety action plan. We applied for the Safe Streets for All, another one on Chip's list. We have $4 million in this program. This is to study and improve pedestrian safety throughout the city of Greenville. A lot of work has been done along Augusta Road, the Augusta Road diet, for those of you who know. Now the attention is going to Stone Avenue. By the way, there's a meeting tomorrow night. If you follow me on social, I'll be pushing that out. Kat, you need to be at that meeting. But that is going to be looking at pedestrian, bike, and car safety throughout our main corridors, Stone Ave, Lawrence, Haywood, Pleasantburg, all of those. So we have asked for 16 million. We'll hear back from that grant program, and we'll hear back in December. We'll see how that goes. Top right. Councilmember Fant, what does EVSE stand for? Okay, well, Google told me in the parking lot on that one too. Electric vehicle supply equipment. Well, of course, it's electric vehicle supply equipment. This is a very small one. We'll be applying for Department of Energy funding just to provide EV capability, charging capability at our new facility at Halton Road. I added the photos on the bottom just to kind of say, what do I lay awake thinking about? Many, many things. But if there's one thing, maybe it's this ties to the latest election. If there's one thing I heard consistently, but particularly in our special emphasis communities, it was the importance of the community centers. And the message was, I typically be talking to someone who was in their 50s or 60s, and they always spoke about how they went to their community center, that was their place to go, and please work on our community centers. Well, we are revitalizing the Nicholtown Community Center. The city has about 2 million in it, 2.5 million, and the state is chipping in just about that much. So 4 million, give or take, going to the Nicholtown Community Center. But the left side photo shows Juanita Butler, the Juanita Butler Community Center. So it serves Greater Sullivan community. It's right across the street from Greenville High. We have been able to get the courts resurfaced, and we are about to break ground on access externally for the bathrooms, but they've been asking for that for 10 years. 10 years, that's ridiculous. But there are not structural problems, but there's definitely need there, that community center. And if Nicholtown is 4 million, Juanita Butler could be 4 million. Don't know. I don't have a number on it. But once you're talking about a number that big, the city needs help, and we need help from the state and maybe the federal government, and we're going to ask for it. A bigger problem, the one on the right, I don't have a picture of the West Greenville Community Center from the outside. So I said, well, I do have a picture of me and Lillian with Dawn Staley on the inside of West Greenville Community Center. So I'll show that one. Who here has heard of Dawn Staley? Okay, not enough hands raised there. The USC women's basketball coach, and we were able to give her a key to the city at West Greenville Community Center. That community center is going to need significant influx of funding. But no doubt it is. And where's Lynn's sister? Lynn Fleming. So Pastor Vardry Fleming and Lynn and I, we talk regularly about it. So I would very much like to have that, have our attention, while I'm on council coming up. So that is all I had for just some examples of projects where money has come directly to the city. I do want to leave everybody with an assurance that we have staff that is watching that money. We are going after what we feel like we can. It is strategic. It is difficult being a red state. That definitely plays into it. No doubt about it. If you look at a map of where the money has gone, there is a pattern there. There is definitely a pattern there. Okay, so with that, do you want me to turn it back to you and you can have people take questions? You want all three of us up?
Yes.
Okay.
We could get everybody. So I'm going to kick off the Q&A. I know a question. It's a little sarcastic, I guess, but I'll answer that. I was in Baltimore many, many years ago. And everywhere you sat on a bench or you threw your garbage out into a thing, it said, "This garbage can brought to you by David, whatever his name was, Mayor of Baltimore." It was everywhere. So I want to know, when all these projects happen, is it going to say this project funded by by President Biden's Bipartisan Infrastructure Act? So it's gonna say courtesy of Henry McMaster. Yeah. That's that ain't right. Okay, well, that was my question. Who else has a question?
Oh, I don't need the mic. I just want to ask about where we stand with affordable housing in Greenville. I am so confused about what it really means and when was it implicated? Is it over or are we still? I don't know. And I get different answers from different people that I spoke with. And no, I have not buzzed you yet either. We will.
I know you get around to it.
But what's going on with it? I mean, where is one go to try to participate in affordable housing? If you're disabled, if you're elderly, and whatever, your income is almost to the indigent level.
So I can speak from the city side.
Okay.
Is that working?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
So when the city funds an affordable housing development through our Greenville Housing Fund, and I'll give you an example, the McLaren, the giant apartment building there. 49 of those units are priced affordably for people who earn 60% of AMI and 80% of AMI, right? Now, area median income, and we don't need to go too far down the rabbit hole of this, but affordable if you were making about $48,000 to a lower number. I can't do the math in my head.
For two people, right?
For one person, that would be one person. To get into one of those units, one would have to contact the leasing agent at the McLaren, right? So how would if I was someone, so how do I even know to go to McLaren? If it's tied to the city, the best place to go is to the website for the Greenville Housing Fund, not Greenville Housing, what is it? GHF Authority, thank you. GHF, Greenville Housing Fund. And they have an interactive map. And on that map are all the projects that have been funded, and you can click on it and see your income level compared to what it is, restricted for. Is it age restricted? All those things. So that's the best resource I could send to somebody from the city side. And they also are partnered with the county.
Okay. But see, a lot of people don't do that. And they're just saying there's no housing for us, this place or whatever. And like me, going around in circles, just trying to figure out how to get into one of those places. Can't afford $700,000.
Okay. Question in the back. Oh, I think you're the first one. Oh. Question? No.
I already asked this, but I was one of the 53 people that applied for the library board. Would like to at the end. Yes. What's the name? What happened?
Y'all ask me. That was a complete. If there's one positive takeaway, you had 6 openings and 57 people applied. And we had to sit there and interview every single person. Okay. Anecdotally, you could tell that people were fed up with the extreme right and the way they run the library. With the homophobia and just all that craziness. Like the library is not, the sad part is those little crazy people, your kids and grandkids learn more about it at school than they ever will at that library and on social media. Okay, so just trying to do book bans is not going to stop access to that information. Here's just the deal on the library board. The agreement was, after the Tiffany fiasco from 6 months ago, that they would pick 3 center right people, And then we could pick 3 center left people. So they would not pick up any of the Marsha Mostons, Cindy, Alan Hill was the other lady, Collins, Elizabeth Collins. Those 3 would be gone. And then they replaced them with center right people. And then they took 3 names off the list some of y'all sent me to pick from. That was the 6. And we had 7 votes for that 6. Went over the list. We actually had a Zoom call among 6 of us, because you know, if you got 7, you get in trouble. So it was 6 of us that had a Zoom call that Sunday from 3:30 to 5. We went over exactly what was supposed to happen. First ballot, second ballot, third ballot, if it got to that. And we were done. So nobody can say any more about it. We get there, we go vote, and all of a sudden we get it handed to us. Like, what happened? We flipped with no notice. Chris Harrison flipped, and Rick Bradley flipped. And that's how it went 7-5 the other way.
Vote them out.
If we change their mind once, we can change it again. What we do is convince them we're not gonna lay down.
Well, they lied for one. I'm trying to figure out who the lady is. Some lady that lives off in District 21, real active in the Republican Party, that somehow struck fear into those 2. I mean, they had them awake at night, I guess, over the weekend. I forget the name. He told me the lady's name, but he's scared to death of this lady. And let me tell you, the Republican women are active, and they're mean, and they're vicious, and they will threaten you, and it just bejesus a lot of them on campus. It does, and it freaked me out. I had no idea that they would flip, but they just kept, man, I knew something was wrong because Chris sits right beside me, and then when he had his little ballot, put his little arm up, like I'm gonna look on his paper or something. And I don't know. You can't, for example, Chris and Rick are part of our coalition. So to try to get rid of them would just set us up to be probably worse off than we are. I mean, Chris votes with us 90% of the time.
Why?
Well,
And if they got a woman scared of the Jesus out of them, if a woman scared of them.
Get away.
they lie. I mean, I don't know. Getting rid of them wouldn't be the answer. I mean, I'd rather have them 90% of the time than no time.
We need to get them to change their mind again. They've changed it once. We need to get them to change it back. Anybody who's been to a meeting run by Alan Hill knows the guy is completely incapable of running anything.
Well, Joe Moore was supposed to be the next chairman. I mean, all of this was planned out. And then we had 7-5 and they flipped. No, I'm a extreme right guy back up. So we stuck with Alan Hill.
Get anybody.
We didn't get anybody. Joe's still there, yes, he's still there.
Okay. I think that is a topic for.
Right, we have to control over play dead.
We have to be just as demanding and loud and.
Yeah. You can be scary.
It can be scary too.
Y'all are friendly and nice, but when they look at you, you get scared just looking at them. Like, who sits at home with them?
I was wondering what happened on Tuesday. When it comes to voting, my husband and I had to go to 3 different voting locations. If we were so set on voting, we would have given up. And in fact, I was like to myself, we've been telling our grandchildren, oh, you gotta vote since they're 18. And I'm thinking, but what kind of example is this for them? If they were going to vote, and I don't understand what happened. No one notified us. my email, my text, nothing was on the TV. Anyway,
Didn't tell us.
It was a mess.
We showed up to work the poll out at the Travelers Best municipal election, and these people came in and they found out online they're supposed to go to Travelers Best, and they weren't. So they don't even, that's not the these guys to solve. I mean, we need Conway.
Yeah, it's really a question. I mean, it would be an individual. First of all, thank you for hanging in there and voting. I can only, are you in the city of Greenville or?
the county.
Okay, county. So I can only speak for the city. In the city, the Democratic Party, well, actually, no, that's not true. The Greenville County Democratic Party did push out some mailers. You know, really, I think it's incumbent on any voter to always check your polling location at scvotes.org. Okay. Okay.
We went to original place to vote, like at 7 o'clock or something in the morning. And then they were locked up in the
Yeah.
office there.
Many polling places were
Okay,
combined.
but then he came home to check the computer. Okay, and he goes to that location, which was on Haywood. And they checked our, you know, our IDs and everything, and they told us we couldn't go there. So then we went to a third place. But also I received, in the meantime, I received an email, and that also was wrong. So I'm just saying, something really.
Maybe a follow-up with the Elections Commission.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think it's suffice to say that you never are sure till you're sure till they take you. I would say this, and this, Peggy, if you weighed in, it has been my experience as a poll worker, obviously not this year, but when people change their registration or come to town and do it when they get their driver's license, so they're at the DMV doing their driver's license, and there's something on the form of, oh, would you like us to register you to vote? And they follow that pathway. That never seems to work. So I always advise people when I meet someone new and they say, oh yeah, I did it at the DMV, I'll say start over. And I can't explain the why. I just know
We know
it's
the
more
why.
important to go ahead and take care of county elections.
So
Options years ago, and when the primary we had voted in our original location twice, so it wasn't like, you know, they didn't have us.
She's not new.
I think we could talk about this all afternoon, but our topic is infrastructure. So this
I don't know about that. I've been
was some,
told that about 20 something years. What happens in a small elections that we had? Not all precincts are open where you usually vote. They combine some of the precincts, so you have to probably call.
and I just want to say that the GCDP at least a month prior to the election had the election agents, election commissions bind list of all the correct locations on the website for at least 2-3 weeks before, maybe longer. And I know that because I personally put it.
And the solution to
But-
that is the early vote.
That's an excellent solution.
Yes.
So I have an infrastructure question. I would like to know what percentage of the electric buses or the CNG buses, what percentage of our buses are no low emission or no emission buses?
That's a great question. And I wish I had the exact answer. One of our challenges is, you might have read the headlines about Proterra. And that kind of has us in flux with that electric fleet. But once we take delivery of these CNGs and the presidential gas ones we've done, as well as the electric ones that are on order from Proterra, then that amount of the fleet will be, I mean, it's getting up to probably about 40% of the fleet. So we're getting there.
How long do you think it'll take before we are all electric on the city buses?
I think we could be all electric, not all electric, all, yeah. Right. Boy, I hate to get pinned into this one. That's a slippery slope, but I can certainly see within the next 12 years. For sure. It's kind of a matter of where the diesels are in their life cycle, which I don't know sitting right here. It's not like we wouldn't take a diesel bus that is functional now and just toss it. They have to come to the end of their life cycle and we replace it with a Lono or an EV bus. Makes sense.
All three of you have said, in essence, that projects don't have to be shovel ready to move forward, but at the same time, it sounds like they need to be well into the pipeline. Is that right? Accurate?
I think that it helps if they are shovel ready. If you have projects that are ready to go, it helps you to implement them faster. There's always going to be a time element with this money, but there is more of a window to develop a project now for certain parts of this program, not all of it, but for certain parts that allow you to kind of do some planning and see what you need to be able to do. But it's always going to help if you have one that's ready.
And when we talk about planning, we're talking about the engineers who work in county government and city government and in government.
It can be that. It can also be just a general, let's bring everybody together and figure out what we want to do because there's funding out there. And there's, in some cases, there's planning grants out there. So, also, I can't remember the name of it, but I know like Clemson has one. It's the Safe Streets for All. Like Clemson had been looking to do a plan for perimeter road around the southern part that would connect into Oconee County and to Seneca, and to figure out a way for that. They've been looking for money for years, and when this came out, they were able to apply for that. They've done no work, and it's just the study, but it gets them down the road. And then if they get it done in time, maybe there's funding for implementation after the fact. But so in some cases, it's like I have an idea. I need to study the idea, not to build the plans, but to study the idea and see what the alternatives are. And there's some funding for that. In some cases, it's yes, we need to do the engineering for the project that we have in mind, but we don't have specific engineering go through the permitting process. Sometimes it's just.
So that I is me. Who do I approach? Where do I go with that idea?
Whatever local government you're in, you would want to talk to them. So each of these projects is going to have an organization that's going to be the one that sponsors it, basically, and that's going to be the community that's going to be implementing the project. So typically, that's going to be your local government. So if it's the city or the county, wherever the project is, you're going to need to approach one of them about that.
Is there any funding likely to be appearing for, any funding likely to be involved in this for the improvements at the Coniston Dam? That's what you were going to.
I wanted to just say that at the dam at Coniston, the county some time ago we were there, and they said they would get that started, but they needed some more money. So I wonder if anything's being done with that, where that dam is running over from people's houses.
Yes, ma'am. The state and the state and the county are already on board with that. And it's a weird way they're going to do it because they don't want to really mess with the top part, because any movement of it, it may give away. So they're actually, the state is going to provide the funding where they're going to do a backstop at the foot of the dam at the bottom. But the funding is already in this current budget to fix the Coniston Dam.
Do you have any idea when it's going to start work?
That'd be a Butch Kirby question, but from my understanding, it's supposed to be by late 2024, toward the end of next year.
Well, I think some of it's leaking through already.
It is leaking, and time is of the essence. Yes.
Well, whatever you do, I know it's hard for you to get it done, but
yeah. Yep, we're fully aware that's about to be a disaster.
Thank you.
So I have a question. I think it's probably the Appalachian Council, and that is, who's planning for seniors for transportation? Seniors who have specific needs and desires in terms of education, socialization, et cetera, et cetera. And I gather that the Appalachian Council does the seniors component. So who's working in ensuring that seniors get some of this action?
So I will talk about this, but I will say the short answer is not many. And that it is a huge problem. So within transportation for seniors is its own special niche. And, in a Greenville, in a Spartanburg, where there's, a mass transit system, there are some opportunities. But the majority of our region, it is very, a lot of people in a lot of rural places that have trouble getting to centers, getting to education, getting to meal centers, different things like that. And to be honest, there's been several efforts over time to try and figure out a way to crack the nut of how do we create a regional system or even within the county to deal with that on-demand transit service for seniors that can't get out of their home and get to places. There's no great solution for that. There's no pot of money big enough to provide you with that. There is funding from the Department on Aging in South Carolina. It's passed through federal funding. At the Council of Governments, about half of our operation, we're about 48 people, about half of us are senior services staff, and we do a lot of different things. We provide a lot of pass-through money to both transit agencies in the region, whether it's Senior Action, Senior Solutions, different senior groups, or provided to different transportation funds for other providers that go out and do on-demand for seniors that want to get to places, whether it's dialysis or getting to a meal center or community center or something. There are programs for that people can call in and get those services and help get them scheduled and everything. And there's funding for that to an extent, but it doesn't meet close to the demand. And there is no good central planning for that, how it happens to communities. The best way we've been able to do it is within the urban areas, work with, like Sparta and GreenLink and PAT and Electric City Transit to figure out how they maybe be able to coordinate. But then when it comes to pulling people from the rural areas in, it's much more difficult. And so there's not a great effort out there to be able to accomplish that. And it becomes a funding issue in the end, because they have all those vans out there taking one or two people at a time. There's been efforts over time to try and figure out how you can pool that and make that more efficient. They have all kind of fallen by the wayside, to be honest. The city's done it, the counties have done it, we've done it regionally, and it's a really tough nut to crack, to be honest.
Okay, one last question.
And do we know yet where the street fund populations will be in District 25? And when may they be available?
Well, we got to get the grant first, but we feel very strongly about the grant. The two locations that are kind of targeted right now is across from the library on Anderson Road, where that little plaza is right there. That's one. And another one is off Augusta between Crestfield and Whitehorse. So it'll be somewhere before you bear off to go to SC Tech. Those are the two locations as of right now.
Okay, I want to thank our panelists very much for all information. Okay, thank you everybody for coming. This is our last meeting of the year. We hope you all have a marvelous Thanksgiving and and a holiday party on December 5th. See you there. Take care.